Hare Krishna, good morning. This morning we will read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home, text 29, which is on the board, I think. Yeah, we can scroll down maybe, that we... Just wait a bit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nastresya Bhatrasya Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. Okay. Evam Raja Vidurena Nujena
Raja Vidurana
Evam Raja Vidurena Nujena
Evam Raja Vidurana
Prajna Saksubodhita Achamida
Pragya Chakshudbodhita Ajanidha
Chitva Svesusneya Pasandra Dimno
Chitvasvishu Sneha Pashan Vidgatino
Nishakama Bhatri Sandarshitatva
Nishchakrama Bratri Sandarshitadva
Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Evam Raja Vidurana
Prajna Saksubodhita Ajamida
Pragya Chakshudbodhita Ajamidha
Chitva Svesuneya Pasandra Dimno
Chitvasvishu Sneha Pashandradimno
Nishakama Bhatri Sandarshitatva
Nishchakrama Bratri Sandarshitadva
Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Pacha Saksubodhita Achamida
Pragya Chakshudbodhita Ajanidha
Shitva Svesusneya Pasandra Dimno
Chitvasvishu Sneha Pashandradimno
Nishakama Bhatri Sandarshitatva
Nishchakrama Bratri Sandarshitadva Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Pragya Chakshudbodhita Ajamidha
Pacha Saksubodhita Achamida
Chitvasvishu Sneha Pashandridhimno
Chitva Svesusneya Pasandra Dimno
Nishchakrama Bratri Sandarshitadva
Nishakama Bhatri Sandarshitatva. Someone else?
Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Evam Raja Vidurananujena
Bodhita Ajamida
Pacha Shakta Bodhita Chamida
Chitva Shvisu Sneha Prashandra Pradimno
Chitva Svesha Pasandra Dimno
Chakrama Ratra Sandarshidadva
Nishakama Bhate Chandarshitatva Evam Raja Vidurenanuchena Pacha Sakta Bodhita Chamida Chitva Svesunea Pasandra Dimno Nishakama Bhate Chandarshitatva Evam Raja Vidurenanuchena Pacha Sakta Bodhita Chamida Svishase Usneya Prasangatimno Nishakamabhate Sandarshitatva. Matasis. Evam Raja Vidurenanuchena Pacha Saksa Bodhita Chamida Chitva Svesase Pasangatitma Nishakamabhate Sandarshitatva. But for a translation, yeah. Evam thus Raja King Dhritarashtra Vidurena Arjunena by his younger brother Vidura Prajna introspective knowledge Chakshu eyes Bodhita being understood Ajamida Dhritarashtra sign of the family of Ajamida Chitva by breaking Sveshu regarding kinsman Snehapasan strong network of affection Dradimna because of steadfastness Nishakama got out Bratri by his brother Sadarshita direction to Adva the path of liberation. So we have translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the sign of the family of Ajamida, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, prajna, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation, as directed by his younger brother Vidura. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher of the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, has stressed the importance of association with sadhus, pure devotees of the Lord. He said, even by moments association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. We are not ashamed to admit that this fact was experienced in our practical life. Were we not favored by His divine grace, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, by our first meeting for a few minutes only, it would have been impossible for us to accept this mighty task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Without seeing him at that opportune moment, we could have become a very great business magnate, but never would we have been able to walk on the path of liberation and be engaged in the factual service of the Lord under instructions of His divine grace. And there is another practical example by the action of Vidura's association with Dhritarashtra. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was tightly bound in a network of material affinities related to politics, economy, and family attachment. And he did everything in his power to achieve so-called success in his planned projects, but he was frustrated from the beginning to the end, so far as his material activities were concerned. And yet, despite his life of failure, he achieved the greatest of all success in self-realization by the forceful instructions of Sadhu, a pure devotee of the Lord. The scriptures would enjoin, therefore, that one should associate with sadhus only, rejecting all other kinds of association, and by doing so, one will have ample opportunity to hear the sadhus, who can cut to pieces the bonds of illusory affection in the material world. It is a fact that the material world is a great illusion because everything appears to be a tangible reality, but at the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. A cloud in the sky undoubtedly appears to be a reality because it rains. And due to rain, so many temporary green things appear, but in the ultimate issue, everything disappears, namely the cloud, rain, and green vegetation all in due course. But the sky remains, and the varieties of sky or luminaries also remain forever. Similarly, the absolute truth, which is compared to the sky, remains eternally, and the temporary cloud-like illusion comes and goes away. Foolish living beings are attracted by the temporary cloud, but intelligent men are more concerned with the eternal sky, with all its variegatedness. Verse again. Evam raja vidurana nuchena prachya saksurbodhita chamida shitva sve sune sneyam pasandra dimnam nisha kamabhati sadashitatvam. Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the sign of the family of Achamida, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, prajna, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother, Vidura. Om Mahyanati Timandasya Chanansana Shanaka Seksual Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Nama Chaitanyamanopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svamurapakadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiyo Shiyuda Padakamanam Shigum Vaishnavamsa Shirupam Sagajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sativan Satvaitam Savaduktam Parjanasaitam Sikrishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jatpate Gopesha Koprakanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vinavanesvre Vishabhana Sutadeve Pranamama Hare Priye. Francha Kalptabhisha Kripas Nabhivsha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sati Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyai Desatarni. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So I'm asking for the blessings of all the devotees so that I can say something which is meaningful. That this verse shows the power of us associating with a pure devotee, even for a few moments. It is said that Dhritarashtra was very much entangled in so many material attachments. But Dhritarashtra represents all of us in this material world. We are all Dhritarashtras. That and to give up this affection to everything in this world, especially family affection, is not easy. But by the mercy of a pure devotee, that one can be put on a path of liberation, that is mentioned in the teachings of Lord Kapila. That and it is said in verse 3, 25-20, that attachment to the material is entanglement of the spirit soul, but the same attachment, if transferred to the sadhu, is the cause of liberation. That's and Srila Prabhupada in the purport speaks about his own meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj. He said only for a few minutes that yes, that was during the few minutes of association that Srila Prabhupada accepted or was given the task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. That he said, otherwise I might have a businessman that and he would never be able to walk on the path of liberation. Of course, this is Srila Prabhupada's humility. And that, but this is the process of devotional service. Rupa Goswami describes the process in 9 stages, from Shraddha to Prema. And I myself have experienced this power of a moment association with a pure devotee. That in the 1980s, somewhere or another, I got Krishna book from devotees. And I was thinking, I was a Christian, a devout Christian, practicing. And I got this book and I was thinking, oh, some stories from India, maybe nice to read. And every evening I started to read Krishna book, thinking it being, I thought it was Indian mythology, but nice to read. I start to read every evening a few pages. Of course, Prabhupada instructs us to read Bhagavatam to read Krishna book in the evening before taking rest. That I didn't know that, but I was reading every evening. And after 2 years, I was halfway the book. And then I realized this Swami is answering all my questions of life. That it took another 2 years before finishing the book. And this is probably the cause of my Shradam by hearing Prabhupada. But then I wanted to meet the devotees, Sadhu Sangha. I was going to church every Sunday. I was praying to God, please, I want to know you. Lead me on the path to you. This was my prayer every Sunday in church. And somewhere or another, God replied by a letter. I received a letter, an invitation for a lecture of a Swami. I never met devotees. And at that time, I was an accountant, and after the lecture was on a Friday evening in a house somewhere where Shriyastras, I didn't know what Shriyastras were, no idea. So I went in my confection suit and I went to the house where the lecture had to be given. I rang at the door and someone opened the door and I asked, is it here, the lecture of the Swami? The Swami was Mahavishnu Goswami, the elder Swami from Gujarat, that he left his body 15 years ago already. But I rang at the door and I asked, is the lecture here? And the man who opened the door said, yes, come in. And I was showing you the way to the living room. And I went in with my confection suit and tie. And I came into the living room and I saw the Swami sitting there. And the Swami said to me, maybe you can leave your shoes outside. So I went outside, my shoes, I came in, and there were some people sitting there dressed in bed sheets with some tuft of hair at the back. I found it very strange. And a lot of flowers. It was an altar with Gaunitai, but deities were not in my frame of existence. That I saw only flowers. And then they started to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. I never heard the mantra before. And so many songs, it sounded very exotic, but my mind said, maybe you should not stay here. This is too strange. You should go out. Somewhere or other, I stayed. And then this Swami started to give a lecture from the Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, about the movements of the living entities. And it describes the living entity in the womb of the mother. And the soul is praying to the Lord for release. This lecture gave me a complete shock. It was very shocking. After that lecture, I understood I'm in trouble. I started by the mercy of this great devotee. I started some covering temporarily went away, and I started to realize that I'm in trouble. I'm in this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Anyway, next day I started to chant, and I went straight to 12 rounds. And 1 week later, I was chanting 16 rounds, and I'm still chanting more than 16 rounds now, after so many years. So this was just by a moment association of a sadhu that I'm also being put on the path of liberation. So this is my practical experience that I met Mahavishnu Goswami 15 years later in Vrindavan. He gave a Bhagavad Gita class. And after the class, I went to him and I thanked him that without your mercy, I would not be chanting that. And he recognized me. So that is the power of association with a devotee. And of course, Sadhu Sangha and then Bhajana Kriya. One learns the process of devotion service from the devotee. I was reading Prabhupada's Krishna book for 4 years, but I had never met a devotees, and I didn't know anything about the practice of devotional service. Of course, a network of family attachment. This is also to get rid of this family attachment is very difficult. But in 1088.8, Srila Prabhupada says that if one gets Krishna's mercy, so this is, I think, 1088.8, that if one can see that if one gets Krishna's mercy, then Krishna takes everything away that the devotee is attached to. And he suffers because of that. But that suffering is a one-time suffering, because Krishna takes away your attachment, and we suffer because of attachment. I experienced the same thing, that when I started to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, that different things happened. I was married, I had 2 children, I had a business which was really booming, but I started to chant Hare Krishna, and my wife got in a relationship with another man, and she forced me to divorce. Nothing I can do about it. I didn't want it, but it happened all. Krishna broke by force my attachment to the family. I became a Hare Krishna devotee, and my entire family rejected me completely, and nothing I could do about it. This was Krishna's mercy. By that, what could I do? I joined the temple, and I dedicated my life to Srila Prabhupada's mission. But it's all due to the mercy of a pure devotee that who puts you on the path. Of course, our first contact was with Srila Prabhupada's books, that otherwise I would not be able to meet this great devotee, Mahavishnu Goswami, and so yes, but here we have Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, his whole life was a life from politics and with siding with his son Duryodhana, who was evil personified, that Duryodhana threw Vidura out of the palace, and Vidura was on pilgrimage for 30 years. But then he came back to Hastinapur. When the Battle of Kurukshetra was over, and Krishna had already left the planet. But when Vidura arrived at the palace, he was very warmly welcomed by Yudhishthira and all the family members. But he did not reveal that Krishna had already left the planet. That we do not need to be the messenger of bad news. That he didn't want to reveal that. Of course, we don't have to be we don't have to disturb others by giving them bad news. They will come to know it in other ways anyway. But Vidura came factually for Dhritarashtra. And we heard in the previous verses the hard words he spoke, that he said to Dhritarashtra, why are you living this degraded life? You are maintained by those who you try to kill by poisoning, trying to burn them in a house of shellac. You insulted their wife, usurped their kingdom and wealth, and now Bhima has killed your 100 sons, and you are living at the cost of Bhima. This is the truth, and he spoke this truth without not in a soft way, but directly. And that he says you are living like a household dog, eating the remnants of food given by Bhima. He said, you have been blind from birth. You have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened. Your intelligence is disturbed. Your T values, your liver is defective, and you are coughing up mucus. So these are heavy words, but it's a reality. And that this body comes to an end. And as long as we can use it in Krishna's service, we should use it in Krishna's service. Prabhupada said, use of this body is a bad bargain. That we can use it in Krishna's service. And that is the best use of the body. But at a certain moment it will deteriorate and the end will come. So he advised Dhritarashtra to become a Dhira. Dhritarashtra was not a devotee of Krishna, but at least he put him on the path of liberation, becoming a Dhira, undisturbed. He left after hearing Vidura. He will live with Gandhari for the Himalayas. And he will live incognito in the night. And the next day, we will have Yudhishthira Maharaj will inquire from Sanjay, his secretary, where is Dhritarashtra? And Sanjay will say, these great souls have cheated us. They left without informing us. And yes, of course, becoming a Dhira and getting liberation is only a stage in devotional service. Because that's the first thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Denasmin shatade kamnam chavam chara tatade antara praptis dhirastat kanamuyate. Your body changes, Arjuna, from boyhood, youth to old age, and so on. And one should not be disturbed by such changes. Komadira, Matras Pastkanti Asitasna Sukatugadana Kamampi Natyastam Statiksha Savada. One must learn to tolerate one must learn to tolerate, like one tolerates the heat in the summer, cold in the winter. One should tolerate this happiness and distress. Because if you tolerate, Yamina Vyatantene Purusham Purushakshaba Samudukatskam Divam Somitattvaya Kalpati. If you tolerate this happiness and distress, Arjun, then you are ready for liberation. And that is the process of becoming a Dhira. And at least he was put on the path of liberation by the mercy of Vidura. During these 30 years, Vidura did not forget Dhritarashtra and came to save him. Good. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Yes, bro. Please.
So the verse says that Dhritarashtra gave up finally his family attachments. So what family attachments did he have? All of his sons had already been killed. He went to the Himalayas with his wife, Gandhari. So what family attachments were still there?
Yeah, that's true. They were all killed. But he was still attached to being a king. He wanted to be a king, and he had also attachment to the Pandavas. That although he favored his sons, he was also attached to the Pandavas, and especially Yudhishthira Maharaj, who treated him always with great respect. All the Pandavas after the Battle of Kurukshetra, they gave Dhritarashtra the rule of Hastinapur. That he still could rule, and they respected his decisions that he took. So yes, but it's true. It's certainly a mercy that his family members were killed, and by that he had to give up this attachment. And probably that helped him also to come to the point when Vidura came, that he was a bit more receptive for the message of Vidura, because Vidura gave him similar advice 30 years ago, and also Akrura, because when all these intrigues started, then Krishna sent Akrura from Dwarka to investigate. And Akrura gave him good advice. He said, give up this enmity with the Pandavas and favoring your sons. Give them the right, they have the right for their heritage. Give them their heritage, their legal heritage. But Dhritarashtra said at that moment, this is very good advice. It's your advice, Akrura, is like the nectar of the gods. But it cannot remain in my heart. It goes to my heart, like a lightning, because it cannot stay there because of the affection for my sons. But now his sons are dead, and now he's more receptive, probably, I think, for the message of Vidura. Yes, but his family affection certainly diminished. It's a good comment. Well, thank you. But, anything else? Yes.
So you mentioned about how Maharaj Yudhishthira was so respectful to Dhritarashtra, sees his uncle, senior,
Yeah.
even though Dhritarashtra was involved repeatedly in trying to murder him, still he was giving respect, so much so respect.
Yeah.
But in the case of Vidura and Dhritarashtra, Vidura is his junior, right? He's the younger brother. So as the younger brother, it doesn't seem like he's being highly respectful to him here in this case, because he's preaching to him so strongly. You know, we see that Rishabdev, he said, he told his sons, you know, don't be like a pig. Nayam deho deha bhajan. Don't be. So he's telling his older brother, don't be like a dog. You're like a dog. It seems pretty shocking to tell your superior. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. But Vidura, he was the counselor of the king before. And before already, he spoke also quite heavy in the presence of Duryodhana. He said to Dhritarashtra, get rid of this son. It's evil personified. Better to satisfy, to get rid of one person for the benefit of so many thousands. And so he gave straightforward advice, because he spoke the truth, and that he was a counselor. But yes, it is. He was the younger brother, and that from the social aspect, that is true. He should not have advised his brother in that way, and certainly not so harsh. But here Vidura is taking the position of a spiritual advisor, guru, after 30 years of pilgrimage. and he wants to wake him up. That, of course, that there's its risks, because especially one should not instruct someone who does not want to be instructed by us. That's not proper. But Dhritarashtra always wanted to be instructed by Vidura. He wanted his advice also. Then he respected the advice of Vidura. Although, out of family attachment, he was not following always his advice, but he always asked for his advice, because at the time, this is in the Mahabharata, so that this was before the intrigues really started. Duryodhan came to his father Dhritarashtra and he said, he said straightforward to his father, I want to get rid of these Pandavas, otherwise we will never be able to rule the kingdom as desired. But at that time, Dhritarashtra said, let me consult. And he consulted with Bhishmadev and with Vidura, and there was a third one I forgot, but he consulted with them. And Vidura said, yeah, and Bhishmadev divide the kingdom in two and gives them each a part of the kingdom to rule. And Dhritarashtra, he respected that. And he took that decision, but Duryodhana was not happy with it. And finally, he had to withdraw it again. So he respected Vidura's counsel, also Bhishmadev's. But there was certainly a risk that by this transgression of social etiquette, but he took the risk for the case of preaching, for trying to save his brother. Like also Prabhupada mentioned in lectures, sometimes, because Krishna said, don't preach to the faithless and so on. So then the question, why are we then holding open classes? And Prabhupada makes the point, yes, we take that risk, and that because the devotee wants to be more merciful than Krishna, and he takes the risk to, and sometimes there's heavy reactions. And so these were some thoughts from my side. I don't know if that makes sense. Something else? Good. Thank you very much. Yantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.